Right. Mhm.
Are you an ambitious individual looking to build a
Mhm. Still looking for my guests, but I don't see them as yet. I figure they'll be on shortly. Good night, and welcome to another night of Christian Hard Talk. Let me use this opportunity to extend welcome to all the ministers who are online tonight, and ministers, ordained ministers, persons from other denominations, from the Portmore Holiness Christian Church, the Holiness Christian Church at large, and for persons who are online tonight from the diaspora. Another night of hot topic, hard talk, addressing the issues that in fact confront the church and the church must confront and ask the questions relevant if you are to be a church in society that is of any relevance. So good night to you all. And tonight we'll be discussing the whole matter of child abuse. And we have heard earlier on in our previous discussions that a child was shot in the back by another child. And as to where that gun comes from, we don't really know. But I'm sure that the agency, maybe that is on top of that, will be online tonight. I don't know if it's pertinent for them to comment on that or not. Notwithstanding, it is in the news, and so it is newsworthy, and we are entitled to give our comments. We meet this on every Tuesday night, and the next week promises to be very, very interesting times. We have, and let me just advertise it and tell those of you to look forward to it. We hope to be having some live testimonies of children who were missing and who were brought back, by some means or the other, either discovered because the police intervene or some organization or individual, or they walk back because they found their way back, or because they whatever, but they came back into the lives of their family and in the lives of society. Those interesting testimonies will be ours to hear next week as we focus on Child Month and as we focus on the whole matter of abuse. We have tonight Miss Elspeth Madden from the Victim Support Unit, and as soon as we identify her with camera and we will we put her on for you to see her. She was with us last week, and it's a privilege, really, really a privilege for her to be on tonight. Let me remind you that your cameras, your mics are to be kept closed until such time. But we really want to thank you for being with us again, Ms. Madden. The awesome job you did. You represented your organization well, and we requested you, and indeed you have. And it's a privilege to have you with us as we look at the whole business of your perspective, what you do in that very, very effective unit of yours. We have also with us tonight Inspector Florine Clark from Sissoko, and we're looking for her tonight. Inspector Florine Clark. We'll be spotlighting her too, for her to really just come that we might see her. And last week she did an awesome job likewise, and she really brought us abreast of what she does in that capacity. Looking for her still. As soon as she comes on, we will indeed spotlight her for others to see. And then there's a newcomer online, and she is Angela Gale from CPFS Right.
A.
Child Protection and Family Services Association.
Agency.
Agency. And Angela, and we are so glad to have you as we add you, Angela, to the spotlight. Still looking for Inspector Florine Clark from Sissoko. Looking forward to have her as we, in fact, explore the topic tonight. Tonight, we have to look at the matter that faces us. Our children are becoming endangered species, and if we abort them before they were born, abuse and kill them after they have been born, sell them to other countries in other situations, to drug trafficking, hurt, damage, and destroy them emotionally, psychologically, and otherwise, what kind of society are we going to be having in the time to come? We just want you to tell us at the very beginning what your organization does. The church has been plays an important part in all of this too, and we had to get involved some years ago. I'll tell you about that shortly, but I'm going to ask Miss Madden to tell us, just remind us of what your organization does, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good night. It's my privilege and pleasure to be back with you tonight. Thank you so much for your
Good night. Good night.
Victim Services Division falls under the Ministry of Justice. And the mandate we have been given is to provide healing and justice for all victims of crime. So, in other words, we see persons who are crime victims and we counsel them. Our primary tool that we use is counseling, and we provide therapeutic intervention for the many victims that we see of all ages, from very small to we have crime victims who are babies, but of course we can't counsel babies, so we work with their parents. And but we have from very small to the very old. We don't discriminate. As long as you are a victim of crime, we see you. We have other programs that we do. We have intervention programs that we also do to help persons who have been marginalized, persons who are victims of crime. They have suffered a lot, especially our teenagers and the younger population. So we have programs that we have specially set aside for them. We have parent programs. We offer parent support. We do presentations. We do a lot of grief intervention, and that has increased based on the amount of murders that have been taking place in our country. So we have been doing a lot of group grief intervention for organizations. So those are some of the things that we do. Telephone counseling now because of COVID, we're doing a lot of e-counseling. So it takes place mostly online, whether Zoom or on the telephone. And we have, we work very closely with the police, the Sissoko, the police, CPFSA. We work closely with the courts, with the schools, with the children's homes, etc. So that's just in a nutshell, a bit of what we do.
So you have about 100 people in your department?
In my department, not at all. We're a government organization, Dr. Bailey. We're
Okay.
island-wide. We do have a parish, an office in every parish in Jamaica.
Okay, great, awesome. Okay, and we have also Mrs. Angela Gale from CPFSA. Angela, will you come and tell us exactly what your department does?
Good evening again.
Yes.
And thanks for having me on this panel tonight.
Yes.
CPFSA undertakes the whole matter of our children and age ranging from 0 to 18. We have different units. I work in the counseling unit, CFSU, Child and Family Support Unit. That's a unit that I work in, where we do counseling. We do not just work with the child, but with the whole family, whether it be both parents or single parent. we work with the family and extended family members so that the child can have all the support that there is. So we do group sessions, individual sessions, family sessions. We do presentations. We do school visits and home visits. Of course, with the pandemic on, our association, due to the distancing and all of that, it sort of changed. We have been doing counseling, video counseling, Zoom, and telephone. And in recent weeks, we started doing a little more home visits and checking in on the schools, because you still have the guidance counselors there, and we can get some information as to whether or not the child is engaged in school just the same, because there is quite a challenge for some children due to the lack of internet service. So that's pretty much what my unit does. My unit was established a couple years ago because the agency saw the need for not allowing children to go into state care when some counseling could help. So this unit was established to provide counseling so that it could defray the children from going into state care, because originally children would just go before the court, go into state care and go into homes. But we have done very well in that era, in that we have diverted our children from going into state care.
I see. Family, you mentioned and emphasize, as your name suggests, that you work extensively with the family. But in Jamaica, we have a lot of single parent family and not very many nuclear family. What kind of family are you talking about? What do you see mostly prevalent in terms of what represents the family in your counseling session?
Mostly single mothers. Mostly single mothers. Sad to say, mostly single mothers.
Okay. And this is hard talk, so expect the hard questions.
Pardon?
I'm saying expect the hard questions tonight.
Okay. Mostly single parents, and it's not that they are not fathers. The children don't have a name, and some of them know the fathers, but the fathers are not playing their role. So a lot of single mothers.
Yes. It is widely believed that the emphasis on preventing the children from going into state care is because of the atrocities that take place in state care, the conditions of this institution that characterize state care, and the inability of the government to provide all that is necessary in state care for the effective rehabilitation and treatment of children. How do you respond to that statement?
Well, as it relates to, yes, of course, it would help the government to save some money, but we look at saving the, creating, helping the parents to parent differently by way of the discipline that they may use, helping them to come to a point of not using the old way of discipline or how they were disciplined, because you have some parents really, what they do is what they received. So we do parenting sessions to help them, to train them, to change their way of discipline, and to change, not to use what they went through to put on the children whom they're raising. And of course, there are many times when we do sessions where parents, that is where they really realize the danger in how they're parenting, because they were parented a certain way, in abusive way, physically, emotionally, and verbally. And so they use beating, which of course that's what they got. And this is what they know. So we try to change that by doing parenting training so that they can change the discipline and helping them to understand that discipline is not beating. And so, you know, the children can grow up knowing that they're loved and cared for. And they also learn as they go along, you know, that when they become a mother, be it biologically or adopted, they can also use this good nurturing that they receive to pass on to their children.
Okay, good. I'm expecting also, you know, my friend Betty and Blaine to be online to provoke some of the questions. If she's on, I would have asked her to identify herself and tell us exactly what are some of the challenges that she is seeing. And I'm expecting also Inspector Florine Clark to be with me. We speak to her today. Are you on, Inspector Clark? All right, before they come, some years ago, the church got integrally involved in the whole business of child abuse. There was a couple years ago, there are a number of ordained ministers from prominent denominations in this country were found to be molesting children. And so it was at what was considered from the church's perspective at an alarming stage. And so what was done is an organization or an individual decided that the church could not continue to facilitate or to remain silent under those kinds of conditions. So we had a meeting of some ministers, and we got financing, a couple millions of dollars financing, and we held a workshop. We took some prominent heads of denomination, prominent ministers on the North Coast for a retreat for about 3 days. And we looked then at the situation, we prayed about the situation, and we developed 4 instruments coming out of those workshops that we think were necessary to stem the whole business of abuse from the clergy perspective. Well, the inspector can tell me if she has been arresting any pastors in recent times, because there were pretty much in the news the fact that some ministers were arrested and dragged before the court for child abuse. But the 4 instruments that we developed at the time was, one, we developed a curriculum that could be adopted by Bible school and training institutions for ministers, that they would not be graduating until they understood what are the importance of their responsibility vis-a-vis caring, administering, and presiding over families, which include children, teaching in Sunday schools. And the instrument was indeed to teach leaders in the church how to relate, to understand, and conduct themselves as they have to do with children. The second instrument had to do with an apology to the society for what was considered our ills, the ills of the church as it relates to how the name we had earned for ourselves in abusing children. So we had to make that apology very clear. The third one were guidelines, rules, and regulations that the churches adopt to know how to behave themselves or how to conduct their various meetings, relationships in the local church as it relates to children, how they would, an organizational model of how to relate to children in the local church. And the last instrument we did was accountability model, where ministers could account to one another for weaknesses, challenges, temptations they would have in that particular area, for them to be comfortable to call other ministers from cross-denomination to deal with their own pathology, if you care to, in those particular areas. Came out of that, instrument was circulated. We held a number of seminars with a number of churches, including the church, number that was accused in those areas. And we would want to believe that it really was involved. In addition to that, we agreed to support the government with a zero tolerance for child abuse. And we were told and agreed to report any and every case of child abuse in our midst, whether it be bishop, deacon, elder, or wherever you sit. We had an obligation to report you to the police or to take in ourselves if you were guilty in that area. So we have so far only Inspector Florine Clark could tell us, in fact, if she has recorded any case. Having heard what your department does and how you have been dealt with it, we would like to hear, in a practical way, what are some of the actual cases? And maybe you could maybe just take out some particular cases, Mrs. Angela Gale and Elspeth Madden, that you saw in our country that seemingly was almost unbelievable. I want to give this audience tonight a real look at what are some of these situations, because child abuse sounds very nice coming from our lips, but it's a monster and it affects and damages our children severely. Child Protection and Family Services Agency, give us about 2 actual cases that you had to counsel with.
Okay, 2 actual cases in.
Stands out in your mind, can't get it out of your mind. Call the sleepless night, maybe.
Yes, there was one case, I think that was the first one that I came upon when I started with the agency as an investigator. It was she didn't turn 13 yet. She was 12 years old. And I went to the school and I found her. And of course, I saw the guidance counselor and I told her, she knew who I was. So I gave her the name of the child and she went and she found her, and I spoke with her, got her a little comfortable, and she was very open to share what had happened to her. She was sexually abused.
Between what age group talking about here?
She was 12 at the time, and she was sexually abused by her father. And that happened.
And you make the distinction between sexual abuse or being sexually abused. What was that case?
She at the time she was not with her father. She went through abuse by her father. She was sexually abused.
Yeah.
And sexual interaction, she explained, took place twice. And it was reported, and they tried to find the gentleman, but he disappeared. And up to the time when I got the case, and he was not found. And so she was living with her mother at the time. When it happened, she was living with a friend of the family, because there was quite a few children, and she had broken up with the father and she had gone her way, and this lady had her, but the lady was getting ill, and so she had called on the father to assist the child. And so the lady eventually died, and the child had to go and live with her father because the mother could not be found. So it was during that time that it happened, like about 3 times. So when she told me the story and she expressed to me what happened the different times, and I right away, I spoke to the guidance counselor and let her understand that I had to take her into care, because she was now with the mother. They had found the mother, and based on the situation, it was not conducive. So immediately before I tried to contact the mother, couldn't make any contact. So I just sought for a place for her to stay. And so I got a place for her at a facility, and I took her to Sissoko. And on that day, they didn't take the statement from her, but eventually the officer and myself, we went to the home where she was, where I had placed her, and got her statement, and went before the court. It didn't go before the court because they tried to find the gentleman and they just did not find the gentleman, the father. I don't know whatever happened up with that, but they didn't find him. For quite a while, they were trying to find him, but they could not find him. So the young lady went on with school, and the last time I checked on her, she was doing fine. And so she had to get some counseling. She had to get counseling. So that one was the first one that I came upon that really.
Hold that second one for a little while. Elspeth, when did your case?
One that comes to mind is one where in a rural area in Jamaica, there was a father who was a farmer who had his 3 daughters living with him. And they were between tweens, like maybe 7 to about years old, all 3 of them. And they were his mistresses, and he groomed each of them individually. It was all the girls knew because they were sheltered and they didn't have much exposure. And Daddy would give them cheese sometimes, or bag juice, or whatever little treat it is from time to time. And that was life for them. And they did not understand that what was happening to them was something that should not happen at all, because that was the reality that they knew. That was just a heartbreaking situation. And it was very difficult to get them to understand that is not, that what is happening was wrong. It was difficult because they wanted their father. So to separate it was just a heartbreaking, difficult thing for happen, because they could not see through. Why would they have to be separated from their father? This is what they knew, and it was right. Nothing was wrong with it, and it was.
Experiencing a little freeze there, but we have heard that situation, that graphic situation of a normal abusive relationship, or relationship in which there's child abuse, and they thought that it was quite fine and okay. How are you brought in, until we get back, Miss Elspeth Madden online? Angela Gill, how were you brought in the picture of this youngster in the school situation?
Well, like I said, I had started out as an investigator, so I get a number of cases, so I would seek to look at the ones that there was more, I need to put some emergency on.
Yes.
So that was just one of my caseload.
Get them from where?
Well, the investigation department, all the cases come. So they were disseminated to the different officers.
Oh, the investigative department of the CPFS.
Yes, yes. We have an investigative department.
Who refer the cases to you?
To CPFSA?
Yes.
Well, a lot of times when cases are done through an intake process, we have intake officers, registration officers now, but a lot of cases come through the phone also. So we will have cases that are reported. We really don't know who reported, but some come through the phone and persons do it face to face. Because we have a registration officer in every parish office.
Yes. And they will come in and tell you about a particular situation, and
they come in person and they make their report. Sometimes citizens or relatives or the parent come with the child, and sometimes they get an counseling is initiated at that first contact.
Yes. Do you have power of arrest?
No.
So
We
therefore,
can remove from a child from a home if the condition is considered sorry about that. We can remove a child from a home if the situation is considered to be the child is in danger in any way. So we can remove the child from the home and place them with a family member, or we find somewhere for the child if there's no family member to step in at the time. But these cases usually go before the court for the court to decide.
oh, so at some point in time, you'd refer the accused person or the person with whom that child was involved. So you would use a parent suspect that a child is being abused, and they bring that child to you. When after investigation, you have reasons to believe that the abuser is Mr. X. What do you then do? Tell the police for them to pick up Mr. X?
Yes, the investigator works with Sisoka.
Yes.
So the Sisoka officer would try to find the person to locate and make the arrest.
Great. In that particular case, you found that was that father arrested?
Not to my knowledge, he was never found.
Oh, he ran away, leave the three ladies. Oh no, it wasn't you.
That was different.
That was the other.
To the best of my knowledge, they tried many times to find the gentleman, but he was never found.
Tell me what kind of caseload your department sees. I want to determine just how prevalent is it in society. Just what your workload is like. Can you speak to how prevalent
My caseload?
Child abuse is in Jamaica by telling us about your caseload.
Well, you have different forms of abuse. You have sexual, physical. Those are the two main ones. In my unit, like I'm in the counseling unit now. So there are most of the times when these things happen, the children are referred for counseling after the matter is settled. Sometimes it never goes to court because sometimes the person is not found, or if the police does not have a statement that is collected and signed to, then it can't really go any further. And sometimes they are not given correct names. And so the police don't have much lead to go on. So sometimes some cases are not really, does not go further than there.
And why? Why is that so? Because they can't find the person is one of the reasons. What are some of the other reasons?
Well, they can't find the person, and sometimes they don't have correct names and address and contact.
Wow.
Because in the case of, say, I have had a case with a young lady. She actually met the young man, and she was in school, but somehow she was lured away by him on a bus. And when the mother found out, she was pregnant. And when the mother brought her to me, she didn't know the name of the guy, and she wasn't sure where she went. She didn't know his name. She never see him after that.
Wow. Well, the next question is going to be a very stunning question for my audience, but I'm not going to hide the question because this is hard talk. I've heard about the individual cases, and you're talking about the individual cases of a person can't finding the person. But is there an institution in Jamaica? You have the church, you have the police force, you have the soldiers, you have the teachers. You have any other institution? Do you find that there's a level of prevalence in any particular institution as it relates to child abuse, and you want to name the kind of abuse that is characteristic of any particular institution in Jamaica?
You mean an institution where abuse takes place?
Yes. Do you see a prevalence among pastors, teachers, soldiers, police?
Well, we've heard of cases, but I can't say I have had any But we've heard of cases in different arenas where abuse is taking place.
Yes. But you are not able to say if there's a particular prevalence in any of these institutions.
No, no.
Tell me about it is largely believed that human trafficking, which involves abuse of children, is also prevalent. In that quarters, have you ever had cases or a case that leads to an organized ring of children being abused?
No, I have never come across any case of trafficking in that way, but we've heard of cases and we know that it is happening. So this is something that this is a topic that we also elaborate on in our sessions, in our group sessions with children and individual sessions. We educate them about human trafficking and the different forms and how they can protect themselves from human trafficking, especially on social media, and giving out their information, private information, and just being aware of their surroundings and persons who they would want to befriend. So we try to educate our young children in group sessions and individual sessions on the danger of human trafficking, and that it's prevalent, and the different areas and how they can be lured in different ways, and is really human trafficking.
Well, I'm kind of wondering, what's the use if in fact you are not seeing cases? I mean, some years ago, it was said that in a particular parish, there was a particular hotel, and these young school children were in the hotel rooms, and persons would pay their money up front and be sent to these rooms, and they would make users these little girls and go to their places of leave, somebody else coming, and there was a ring, there was a traffic. But how can we be emphasizing human trafficking when there don't seem to be any cases that is being brought before? Is it a well-protected ring, well-hidden syndicate operation that is going on in that area? Because we seem to be emphasizing it, and there are no cases being brought to you. What will your comment on that?
Well, like I say, no, I can't tell you that I have counseled anybody who have been trafficked. But of course, we know it is out there, and we educate our young people.
Amen. You are on Christian Hard Talk. We're dealing with the matter of child abuse, and we have organizations that are responsible to protect and also to see children who have been violated. We have Miss Elspeth Madden from the Victim Support Unit, who had a problem and was bounced off, trying to get back on. Then we have, of course, just talking to us, Angela Gale, and we are looking forward to Inspector Florine Clark, and I don't know if Betty Ann Blaine is on and want to comment at this point in time, but I'm really interested in knowing, are you equipped to fully do your job effectively? If not, what would you need to be better able to cover the amount of cases that you are seeing and the type of cases that you are seeing?
Well, of course, the caseload is always a little high based on staffing, but as officers, we do our best to reach our children and our families. In terms of sessions, and of course, resources is limited in every area, but we seek to do our best as officers in the interest of the children. And like I said, in my unit, the complete family is involved.
Do you see
COVID has put a little
okay.
damper on our sessions, in that there are times when parents, because of their jobs, we would want them to do some parenting session. They are required when they come into my unit. Our counseling period is for 6 months and over. Depends what is happening with the case. So they have a contract to sign, and they are, as parents, they are supposed to attend a certain amount of parenting session, and the children are supposed to attend a certain amount of group session. And the individual sessions now are usually more, as often as possible. Every week, if necessary, once a week, 2 weeks, as necessary. It depends what is happening. But sometimes, there are many times, of course, parents are, because of their jobs, that affects them coming, one. And sometimes where they live, because there are many communities in St. Catherine, and this is and they have to come to this office for counseling sessions. So the factor of finance is also a problem, to travel from point A to point B. And so that has put a damper on sometimes how we would want to reach everybody. So although we make ourselves available, sometimes they do not come. And so that is why we do home visits, where we can sit with the family and look at issues that they face, and see how best we can work with the family.
Wow. So that's interesting. So the government doesn't have a means of providing any kind of support, assistance, or pick them up and take them to the counseling session. I have, by the way, Miss Elspeth Madden on the phone, and I might ask her to comment. But what the government doesn't provide any private support to any of these victims to help the process?
By way of finance, well, we refer, what we do is refer clients for financial assistance to Ministry of Labor. That's PATH. If children who are reintegrated, their family who were in state care and are reintegrated, they get some stipend monthly. Foster children get some support. And if they are special children, they also get extra support financially.
Okay, I see. Miss Madden, are you hearing us? You're hearing us, right?
I'm hearing you.
And if you project, we'll be able to hear you.
Okay.
Yes. Tell us about if there's any particular trend where prevalence of abuse is concerned in institutions, whether church, police, soldier, teacher, lawyer, doctor. Is there any institution in which there is a prevalence of abuse?
I've had like maybe lots of abuse situations that are institutional, that are happening inside the institution. It's not, I can't say that there's a trend. I can't say that at all, but there's just been little pockets of issues that have come up from time to time to our knowledge, and that I'm aware of. But I would not say that it's a trend.
I see. And on the matter of the institution of human trafficking, we are told that it's very prevalent. It's happening in Jamaica. Children are particularly the victims of human trafficking. Are you seeing cases of victims of human trafficking, and how prevalent is that?
Okay, so that is in our faces, right? We have inter-parish trafficking happening, moving children from one parish to another. Recently, I had a case of a early years teenage young lady. She was physically very mature, and she's from St. Andrew, and she ended up close to the west, and she was a victim of trafficking, and it was sexual, right? And it's happening a lot. It's happening in where you have family members are using younger family members to make money by using them for sex. Somebody's paying this family member to have sex with a younger child. So it's happening a lot. We're seeing a lot of these cases.
And these are criminal cases. So, is the investigation of these cases or reporting of these cases would bring any kind of danger or reprisal to the person who report these cases?
Usually people report, usually in reporting cases now, people report anonymously. And a lot of it is found out by the police as well, because when a child is reported missing, police are immediately on the alert and they're investigating the missing child. So a lot of these cases are brought to light by the police who find them.
Paint me a profile of what really is human trafficking. Is it a matter of a child that them call maybe a bad child who sells herself and go about and collect money for this? Or she's kidnapped, taken away, having in a particular setting, have a pimp that threatens her and her family? What paint me a profile of what human trafficking looks like and the types of it?
Okay, so there's not just one profile. There's just even what you just said. There's a child who is pimped. There's a case of the child who is a student at a popular high school, and she was being threatened and she was dominated by this man, and she didn't even understand that he was a pimp, but it got to the place where she would be in her class and a message would come to the phone to say, come, I'm waiting for you at so and so, and she would have to go to the office and make up a excuse that somebody is ill or she's ill and she has to go or something. And she goes and meet this man, he takes her away and he pimps her. So that's one instance of what happens repeatedly. There's also the instance of the child who is rebellious. They're rebellious teenagers, and some of them are rebellious and they themselves agree to allow a relative to use them in this way, right? So that happens, and they're taken away from home. We're looking for these missing children, and we don't know what happened, what it is that has happened to them. There are some of them that have not been found, right? And there's some cases where this person, he had this child, and he just moved from parish to parish with the child, you know, and thankfully one day he fell asleep or something like that, and the child ran away when she got the opportunity, and that is how she was found. She was able to run away and run to safety. Somebody saw her, and that person stopped to find out what was happening to this child. So there are just different profiles, and it is what is really happening.
Do you have, your cases are seemingly many. What do you need, and what could a government or a people, or what kind of resources would you need to be better able to do your job?
I think that much more funding needs to be put into the social services. Victim Services Division has a tool called Missing Children Risk Assessment, and we call it MCRAS, Missing Children Risk Assessment Tool, and that is a tool that has been scientifically developed with a U.S. partner, and it helps us to identify children who are at risk at becoming missing, right? And this is a tool that we have piloted in schools, and we have been able to pick up. It teaches, it brings out what is it about this child that wouldn't put them at risk to become missing, whether for trafficking, it doesn't matter what it is, but what are the things? So if we had more funding, if more funding was being pumped into the social services in Jamaica, I think that we would be able to make much, much more of an impact at prevention.
Wow, that is stunning. Angela Gale, the same goes for you. More money for what?
Yes.
Yes. What resources would you need? If it's more money for what?
Yes. if we could get some assistance, like I said, because it is more conducive for in our setting to do our counseling. So if sometimes when persons need to come and they would say they are financially, restricted, if just bus fare is made available, taxi fare is made available for them to get to us and to get back home. Provision is made for that, that would help too.
We're expecting the police tonight, and I'm still looking forward and asking, do we have Inspector Florine Clark online from Sissoko? Is she online as yet, or is she arrived? Tell me, how?
Reverend Bailey.
Yes.
If I can just piggyback on what Ms. Angela said.
Yes, please.
We have clients who can't come to their sessions because they don't have the bus fare, right? They are hungry for the help. They're hungry to find the healing that they need, but they can't make it because of the lack of funds. We have clients who are hungry, right? Some of them, they come to us hungry. We have to take monies out of our pockets to give them something to eat because we can't put them on an empty stomach.
Yes.
And maybe that's the reason why they find themselves in the abuse situation in the first place.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the need is just so great.
So to a great extent, the government seems to be paying lip service to the alleviation of child abuse in our country if we can't have a social service system that provide the basics for persons who are victims. That's an atrocity. In fact, who would you like me to speak to? I am prepared to speak. No, I'm serious. I'm prepared to speak to somebody because here we are, persons who are victims. So once you're a victim, that means that the state has a responsibility to not only protect you, but serve you. And to serve you is to get to the counseling session, right, in whatever way. But you said that who, and I'm seeing Inspector Florine Clark coming. I know that she had a busy day. She looked really, maybe she had case dealing with, a situation. I will ask her about the human trafficking in a short while. But who would you like, Reverend Dr. Alvin Bailey, to speak to about providing some more money? Christian Hard Talk is prepared to talk to somebody and to tell them exactly what's happening. Who would you like? Call name, man. This is Hard Talk. Who you want me to? Minister of Health? The Prime Minister? Tell me. I'm prepared to make representation.
Well, I think maybe the Prime Minister could start. Go right to the top.
All right. But
yes. I agree.
Okay, we report to the Minister of Justice, right?
I agree.
All right. You can hold me. I shall be talking to somebody for you on that one. Welcome, Inspector Florine Clark. You had a busy time. I've been calling for you all.
I have been on since 8 o'clock listening to you, sir.
You were calling me to come and show your face.
No, you didn't ask me to speak. I listened. I heard all the ladies speaking, and I was listening to you as well.
All right, well, welcome then. So tell us about human trafficking. You will be the person who that becomes a part of your agenda to catch those persons. Tell us about human trafficking. How prevalent is it? Where is it? What is it?
I am unable to give you data or speak in relation to human trafficking, as that is the responsibility of the Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Unit, right? Yeah, I can say to you, however, that we have not had any case at all involving persons who, based on the scenario, we would render to be one of human trafficking. And so when we do have those situations, those persons are directed to CTOC for them to do their investigations.
How effective have you been? Are you comfortable about the number of cases, if you are able to apprehend and bring to justice the people who are guilty of human trafficking? What are your frustrations?
So I repeat, whilst we will interface with the victims, the investigations are done by CTOC. Okay. So I am unable to speak on that aspect of it. If it's really, if it is in relation to sexual offenses and child abuse, then I'm here ready to speak.
All right. So how do you get your cases And what action do you take when your cases come? How do you get your cases? What is your course of action?
Right, so like victim services and the CPFSA, that's the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, we do have walk-in where our customers walk into us, our victims walk in. We are also fed with cases from our local police stations who may have been the first point of contact for our victims. As also we have referrals from both agencies, the Child Protection and Family Services agencies, Victim Services, and Jamaica in general. And when those persons come to us, then the first thing we do is that we seek to interact with them through our intake desk to commence our preliminary investigation.
Yes.
And depending on the situation at hand, then we will decide how to prioritize what is done first.
Yes.
So if it's a situation where we have a rape victim and the physical injury is serious, then very serious, then the priority would be the medical doctor. And at Sissoko, we do have a medical facility at hand and the office from the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. In ordinary situations, when the persons come in, we interact with them, and in that interaction at the intake desk, we seek to identify the offense. And after we have identified that offense, then we decide the next process, which will be that we interview the person to record statements from them. In some situations, they may be interviewed by CPFSA first, because it depends on the cases that we have at hand. So we ensure that we use up all the spaces, right? But otherwise, we ensure that we do our formal interview to record our statements, and then if it's one that warrants the medical facility, then they are seen by our medical doctor. And again, depending on what type of case of abuse is there, then it may be one that requires us, if it's a case of rape, maybe one that requires that we use a sexual assault evidence kit to collect evidence, which is later prepared by the doctor and handed over to the police. This is called chain of exhibit, and the police officer prepares that and takes it to the Institute of Legal Medicine and Forensic Science for analysis. So we have different procedures. One procedure that we do very often, and it gives us good results because of course we investigate to unearth the truth, is that we visit crime scenes to get a perfect understanding of what happens. When we visit crime scenes, it gives us a good understanding, and it also helps to identify whether or not the person is speaking the truth. Right? We do have our crime scene specialists who go, those are the scenes of crime officers, and they visit the scene, and if exhibits are to be taken, they do the same chain of evidence and prepare it and take it to the lab. As also, they process the scenes and photographs the scenes as well. And this is prepared to add to the case file and is, after being sent to the divisional case registry, where the case file is vetted for court, it is then forwarded to court. And that is in the case when perpetrators are arrested and charged.
Wow. My final question, Christian Hartog, here on the platform, Zoom platform of the Portmore Holiness Christian Church. We're talking to persons in Jamaica and the diaspora from different churches, denominations, and so on. The question that we'd like you to respond to is, how safe are our children, and what is needed to make our children safer? Angela Gale, would you like to respond? How safe are the Jamaican child? How safe are the Jamaican children? What do we need to make our children safer and Jamaica a safe place for our children?
Well, the protection of a child solely relies first on the parents. whoever the parent is. Protection of the child is solely relied on the parent. Now, a lot of children become endangered because of lack of supervision, proper supervision. The reality is a lot of children are on their own. That's a reality. And there are those parents who really try their best. There are parents who do not parent. They couldn't care less. And that's a reality. So children are really on there. A lot of children who are playing the role of adult and child. They're on their own. And that is where a big problem comes in, because the parent is responsible for the care and the protection of their child. A lot of children are on their own.
Wow. Yes. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Elspeth Madden, Miss Elspeth Madden, what do we need is to protect our children? What can we do and to make Jamaica a safe place for our children?
All right, we have a cyclical problem in our country, and it's handed down from generation to generation. The poor parenting skills, the lack of good parenting skills, and in our culture, emotional health is not emphasized as much as academics, or something like that. But emotional health, which is beneficial for just a sound mind, beneficial for a child to understand who loves them, that they're loved by their parents, so they don't have to go out to look for love. Their heads are not being turned by every boy or every man out the road because they have fathers who are affirming and validating them at home, right? The cycle of just not knowing how to love, not knowing how to impart to somebody that they are wanted, that they are cared for. So many of our children grow up being neglected, be feeling abandoned and feeling as if nobody wants them. And these are things that are cyclical because their parents were treated that way and their parents' parents were treated that way, and it is just passed down. And it begs for help at the parenting level. I've led parenting workshops where parents were hungry for the information that we were imparting, where parents were literally going home to institute some of the things that they were learning out of the workshop. So it's not that they're not teachable, right? They are teachable. We just need to hit it at the parenting level to change the cycle that is prevailing in our society.
I'm coming, thank you so much. I'm coming to you, Inspector Florine Clark. But if you were to put a dollar figure on what it takes to get a child for that 6 months to the clinic and back, is there amount of money that is designated per child to get them to the center and back? Is there any figure that you can put on it, Ms. Madden or Angela Gale? How much?
You mean to come to see us?
Yes. Is there a price tag per child that you would say is needed to take a child from home to center for the 6 months?
Well, to be honest, I can't readily say that because you have a lot of people who live 3 bus fares away, 2 bus fares. There are people coming from rural St. Andrew and stuff like that. Outside of COVID, we were able to help to go to visit some of them depending on the situation. But with COVID, we're unable to do that. So there begs another problem. It's just that because of e-counseling, we're able to, keep following up very proficiently. But the problem too is that there are some people who have no access to Wi-Fi.
Angela Clark, what about you? Is there a family, is there a child that you'd like to get to the counseling center, or do you have an allotment per child for 6 months to get them to the counseling center and back? And you could name us an amount of money that is required for that? Your mic is closed, Angela.
Okay, yes, could you repeat?
Yeah, I was asking if you could put a dollar figure on what it takes to get a child from a area the furthest distance, or even a particular case where you know they're going to require counseling for 6 months, and it's going to take that amount of money to get them from there to your place.
Well, we have children all over St. Catherine. There are times when we will put together, as officers, we will put together for return $500 to come and go back, sometimes 800, depends where they're coming from.
And how many times a week would they do that?
Not more than once a week.
So once
a week, twice a month, or 3 times a month.
So it's not really a lot of money, don't it?
It's a lot when you don't have it.
I can understand. Christian Hard Talk, you think we could give these two institutions $50,000 each for some children to come to counseling? I'd like us to put our money where our mouth is. I'm going to ask us to, tomorrow between hours of 9 and 5 o'clock, call the number 876-989-6004. Pledge me some money. Pledge me some money, all 64 of us. Let us give each of these institutions. We're not going to give the police lady any. But let us give this institution $50,000 each for help some children to come to get some counseling session. Go in your purses, go in your bank accounts, call 876-989-6004 and let us have $50,000 each. They can give you a bank number that they can transfer the money to. Call 989-6004. Could one of my active person place that in the chat for me, please? Before we ask. Yes.
I'd just like to just put a little thing in to say that another challenge, and this may be a discussion for another time,
yes,
is the children. They come for counseling, you have an excellent session, but they go home to the same situation that is not changing. And so it is hard for them to change. What
I want you to do to that is to tell us where you want us to help. We have churches all over. And if you can tell us of an area that you have a particular situation, man, that needs to be spoken to, I'm prepared to do what I can do to ask a pastor to go and have a talk. I'm kind of well known to that man, to that situation. So let us help that situation. So if you have a case like that, and it's okay to ask the police, Inspector Florine Clark here, tell him to send an officer over there to warn, because I know that my officer at my station that I serve is prepared to go and warn somebody and say, if you make me have to come back over here, so please refer that situation to us. Let us see what we can do. And of course, yes, ma'am. The situation that we can see what we can do. Again, I'm asking some person, is the number in the chat as yet? Put our telephone number at PHCC in the chat for me or somebody, right? See, there it is, 876-989-6004. And I'm asking all of us before the week is over, would like $50,000. Pledge me $5,000 each. If we get more, we still give to these ladies who want to help some child who has been abused to afford the bus fare to get to the counseling center. I'm not asking for much, just $100,000 are coming out of this. Inspector Florine Clark, what do we need to do? You're at the case where you come to you, sometimes you get the information, you go for them. Do your swabs, do your whatever you need to do, and then you attach to other institutions of the police force that are pledged to serve and protect. What can you do? What can we do to make Jamaica a safer place for our children?
It's a collective effort. In making Jamaica a safer place, I believe that we need to change our culture. For one, and I'm not attacking us here, we need to place more emphasis on keeping our children safe, not just during Child's Month, but throughout the entire year. You asked about what the government can do to other persons. I believe we need to look at policy We need to change our policy approach. We need to hold not just mothers, but family members, community members, the entire Jamaica accountable. You asked about professions. At Sissoko, everyone comes to us, and I'm speaking about our perpetrators now.
Yes, yes.
Right across the board, it may not be this year or the year before or 2 years ago, but we have had persons in all category. You would have remembered that year when we had several persons from the church. So then policy needs to step in place to help that child, because we have a situation where we have children having children.
Yes.
I have seen more pregnancy in teens since COVID, and I am saying that we need to start in the schools to train our children for them to understand how important they are to us and to the future, and that their bodies weren't made for abuse. And so we need to help them to be more resilient in pushing off these persons who are seeking to rob them of their innocence. And I speak because I have a passion in relation to the cases sexual intercourse with a person under 16. Because these young ladies, yes, you're going to, all of us know that when you reach 9, 10 growing up, you have the changes in your body and you have dreams and all of that. But as adults, we have a responsibility to protect our children. When you see that they're going out of line, you're supposed to be there to back them up like barriers, not to abuse them. Too many parents are abusing their children, and I'm speaking of sexual abuse also. Too many brothers, too many fathers, too many uncles, too many community uncles. So it means that every institution needs to take on this responsibility to share. Our neighborhood watches need to be having it on the lips of their tongues to save the fathers and the brothers from becoming perpetrators and victims, because our victims aren't only females. But we need to look at a culture change. This has gone too far, and our children, I mean, they're taking on roles far too early.
Yes.
Far too early. And like I said, we need to take it from a policy perspective. Every politician going into his or her community need to understand that they have a role to play. It's not just for the police officer, it's not just for the social worker. It's for all of us. Our children are our future, and if we fail to do what we have to do now, our future will be dim, and I don't know what is going to happen to us as seniors. But let those of us who are service providers, let's continue to do our best and continue to take the arm out of practice and practice with love. I heard my fellow sister share that she'll have to share lunch and bus fare. I'm happy to say that we too do that at Sissoko, and we have the government vehicles at our disposal, so we, as best as possible, we transport our victims to and from. Unlike my other sister's situation, we have to continue to investigate. And so, whilst we have to maintain the protocols of this COVID Disaster Risk Management Act, we are still going in the homes because we are adamant that we are going to take perpetrators before the court of justice to be held accountable. And we must continue to do this because we have to continue to save our children. Thank you.
Miss Man, you were going to say something lastly?
Inspector Clark hit the nail on the head when she spoke about children having children, because that is happening too much. It is very pervasive in Jamaica. Too many of our children are becoming parents, and it is a critical problem. It's also still a cyclical problem. It's a community problem. It's a cultural problem. It's something that is happening in our country, and it is bigger than the social service agencies, because it's not that we're not doing our jobs. We are doing our jobs, but it means that there's so much more that needs to be done. Much more attention needs to be paid to the social services to arm us to do the work that we need to do. And also, the parenting, I cannot overemphasize how much of an impact would be made if we push more and put more, plow more into our parents to get them to the level where they are able to parent effectively. Because the children look to their parents, no matter how quote unquote bad the parent is, the child is looking to the parent.
You know, you have my audience speechless and spellbound for the moment. We are well over time, but I realize that this is important. I'm not going back to it. But then, you know, I'd like to, I'm told that all of these young kids that are having children, when they go to the hospital and have delivered these children or to deliver these children, what kind of investigation is done to find those men at that stage? Anything at all? Or them just have them baby?
All right, so I guess that's an answer for Sissoko. And with
no, let us hear her. Yes, Sissoko.
Right. So through collective effort, I can tell you that these children cannot walk in any of our health institutions, especially the hospitals, without Sissoko being called. And they are not going to be released after delivery without Sissoko stepping in to intervene. So I can say kudos to the health facilities, especially the hospitals, the Victoria Jubilee and Spanish Town Hospital and the others. We have that lot. Now, our private doctors do communicate with us as well. I must share that we get calls to say that this is a situation and they have referred them to us. So I believe the reporting aspect in terms of sexual intercourse with a person under 16 is doing well. We are doing well in that area. And perpetrators are brought to justice. And just to share with you too, that the diversion program is one that we are adhering to, because we need to save our children from themselves. So the policy is in place to prevent those children from becoming perpetrators or being marred as criminals. And so once we see those cases and when we assess it, then it is ready for that situation. Then we really recommend that the perpetrators, young perpetrators, our children, go on the program to divert them away from the criminal.
Well, I've heard some influential individuals and organizations in this Jamaican society calling for a legalization of a reducing of the age of consent from 16 to 14. I've heard it. I was even in Parliament when one reputable, so-called reputable organization, and recently when the Capri report comes out encouraging our children to be able to get abortion without parental consent, those kinds of sophisticated abuse. But thank you so very much, ladies. Again, I'm asking you to drop off some $5,000 and $10,000 at my office. Let us call the number, do some lodgement to some account, and call us and tell us that you have lodged it to the account. We want to give these ladies $50,000 each, compliment of Christian Heart Talk. We have been listening to women who are interfacing with our children, adding to the group of persons in our society of the social services who are protecting the well-being of our children and helping them when they have fall prey. Our society is in good hands, but they need to be effective and need to be enabled to do their jobs properly. So I'd say thanks to Inspector Florine Clark, thanks to Mrs. Angela Gale, and thanks to Ms. Elspeth Madden of the Victim Support Unit. God bless you, ladies. And I want to say to our audience, thank you so much. Whatever you can do, because you too have a responsibility to help this country to be a safe space for our children. So whatever you can do to create a safe space for our children, be sure to do that. You are on Christian Heart Talk. Let us be Christians. Let us do what we must do until our children are safe for all of us. Yes, sir. Wow, gosh.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, Rev.
Good
Night,
too.
everybody.
Yes,
Good night.
to you.
Good night,
Good
Rev.
night.
Night, everyone.
Good
God bless
night.
you all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.